I'm sorry. But I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate. We think too much and feel too little. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness. Without these qualities, life will be violent. And all will be lost. Do not despair. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die. Dictators die. And the power they took from the people will return to the people. Will return to the people. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world to do away with greed. Now let us fight to free the world, to fulfill that promise. Let us all unite.
Well, speaking of freeing the world, the subject today on your Corporation Nation radio program with me, Clint Richardson, is going to be how the world is being taken over incrementally through what I consider to be one of the worst possible tools ever developed, and that is the education system. Now, today we are going to be focusing on one subject that actually branches out, as you will see, into a major global takeover of the hearts and minds of men, and especially our children. The real problem is, as we're going to find out, this is not just a local issue. This is not just a state or national issue. This is an international issue being implemented through such agencies as the United Nations, through Agenda 21. This is way beyond just education, because it promotes all of the things that we have been so afraid of, all of the things we've been talking about for so long that we're now seeing come to fruition. This Common Core, it's incredible. So let me get started here, because this subject is now what I consider to be my red flag. This is the most important subject I've come across, because, my God, let me start out by just reading a quote. That's probably a familiar quote to many people. The source of the quote is not that important. Listen to the words of the quote, because this describes what Common Core is actually doing. It is doing the opposite of this, and that is simply that it is no measure, it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. Again, it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. This is we'll call this an axiom. No matter who says this quote, it's going to have a very relevant, it's relevant especially to what government is allowing to happen, what your government is allowing to happen. Common Core, in my personal research and now opinion, educated opinion, is literally creating a well-adjusted society who doesn't so much mind that it's sick. Okay, it is creating a very unhealthy society, in fact, and it promotes that in many ways. Now, one of the first things I want to talk about is a lesson plan, actually, in Common Core, that I found to be probably the most disturbing lesson plan I've ever come across. And there are a lot of disturbing lesson plans. Okay, but this particular one is called Voices. It is actually, this one particular one is geared towards first grade students. So primary education for first grade students. It also teeters up as you go through the Common Core curriculum. But we're just focusing, remember this, on first graders. Okay? Voices is the title of it. Literature and writing, and this falls under the English and language arts aspect of Common Core. And Common Core really only has standards for English language arts, and I believe mathematics is the other one that it really focuses on, which are two, the most important aspects of learning, actually. So the real theme here of this lesson plan is, how do I organize people in my community to fix social problems? Now, of course, Common Core is very, very hip on social media, something that I'm going to continuously be talking poorly about, even though we are actually in it as we speak. Social media, massive online video games and worlds, virtual reality, and that sort of thing. So, remember again, this is for first graders. The theme of the book, the theme of the particular lesson plan is to present the central question for first graders. In the Voices Democracy theme, students use their voices to advocate solutions to social problems that they care deeply about. Again, first graders. These are kids that just came in from the playground after squashing a bug. That's about the most deep they're going to get as a 6-year-old. All right, so solutions to social problems that they care deeply about. They are engaged in learning the following theme-related social knowledge and skills: social role models, social advocacy, and respect for each other. Now, while I'm reading this, I want you to consider also the Anti-Defamation League. We're going to get into that very heavily today, because most of this stuff, in fact, I would say, if I were to describe the Common Core curriculum and all that goes with it in one sentence, I would simply say that it is a front for international Zionism and the ADL. That is my opinion at this point after doing all this research. That is what is happening. It is allowing the ADL and other private associations to write the curriculum in schools, and we'll get into that in a moment. Social. Everything has to be social. When we're talking about the word social, what we're really saying is that, use the word democracy quite a bit in this lesson plan. And what that really means is to be good little citizens and go along with the current political system, which basically gives up your individual voice into a collectivist society or social advocacy. Okay? The last thing that these people want you to know, as we've been discussing for the last week, is that you have power only as an individual and never as a group. You are the only advocate for your own rights. If you give your rights up, as we all do as citizens, to our quote-unquote representatives, we're participating in democracy, and we're actually socially giving up our all of our rights, basically, to do anything. It goes on to say, Voices activity. Quote, respond to this question by learning to develop a democracy plan in which they develop ways to help people in need. Sounds all fluffy and nice. Wait till you hear this. Students are encouraged to express and explain their thoughts, feelings, and reasons for selecting the issues that their speeches address. Here's the lesson plan. And if you remember, for those who listened on last Tuesday, a week ago, we had Jan Irvin from Gnostic Media on, who came on and explained the trivium. Logic, reason, grammar, rhetoric. Okay, all of these things that are needed to form a proper education, the who, what, why, when, where, and how of everything. But that's not what Common Core teaches, because Common Core doesn't wish to teach you how to recognize the death throes of the democracy. No, it wishes you to learn what it calls and refers to as emotional words. Now, if you remember, we talked about fallacy. Fallacy is one of the most important things to learn, because if you don't learn your fallacies, your ad hominems, your straw man attacks, your poisoning of the well, your straw man arguments, all of these, then they're going to be used against you on a continual basis until you learn to recognize them. So, the last thing Common Core wishes to do is to teach children that fallacy is bad. In fact, what it does is teach that fallacy is a wonderful tool to manipulate people, especially your parents. We'll be back with more. education going on. Well, that's exactly what's going on. Let me explain to you how the Common Core curriculum is teaching children how to control others through fallacy, or what it calls emotional words. Now, if you're not familiar with the Hegelian dialect, or what is known as problem, reaction, solution, that indeed is what they are teaching your children in school. How to use the Hegelian dialectic against you, the parent. So how is this going to work? It says, well, here's the lesson plan. It says, remind students that emotional words appeal to readers' emotions and feelings. Tell students, remember, we're getting first graders here, how to organize people in the community to fix social problems. This is what they're trying to do with first graders, and they continue this in more advanced stages as they go. Emotional words appeal to readers' emotions and feelings. Tell students that when they write a call to action, what first grader is going to know what that means? Again, squashing a bug, hitting girls, that kind of thing. They should include emotional words to get readers to feel so strongly about the problem that they want to do what is being asked of them. 6-year-olds. All right. So it goes on and asks why the teacher is supposed to be asking this to the students is why did the writer use the word refuse instead of other words such as, say, will not? And the answer is refuse is a stronger word that makes the company sound as though they are hard to work with, which may make readers angry with them. Why did the writer say we could be without a park for months or even years? And the question really refers to the fact that this is not a true statement. It is just an appeal to emotion. Again, a fallacy. This is what lawyers do, attorneys. Answer to this question, by stating the worst that can happen. If the company builds houses, the writer appeals to the reader's feelings of anger. And this is referring to, of course, a company that is closing a park so that it can build houses. So how do you advocate socially to stop a company using emotional words to make people angry? I mean, basically what we're teaching is how to manipulate people into getting behind your cause through the Hegelian dialect, and we'll get into that in a moment. So, how to learn and use emotional words. This is a lesson plan. How to use and learn and use emotional words to manipulate people, in other words. The accompanying workbook asks the following questions, giving 2 choices to fill in the blanks, and with the correct answer highlighted for the teacher's reference. So we're reading a teacher's reference book here, and here's the questions. This is what you're asking first graders. The little girl blank wearing her boots. And the choice is to fill in the blank, does not like or can't stand. And the correct answer, and yes, there is a correct answer, is the little girl can't stand wearing her boots, because that is an emotional response, as opposed to does not like, which is simply it is emotional to an extent, but it is more honest. Can't stand is more like a temper tantrum. Okay, number 2, the kids blank their parents to take them to the zoo. Now, what is the school system, the Common Core curriculum, want your children to, what word do they want them to be accustomed with when in a sentence like this? Well, to fill in the blank, you have a choice between begged or asked. Well, which one is more emotional? Of course, begged. The kids begged their parents to take them to the zoo. Here's one of the worst ones, because this really delegitimizes the parents. My mom always blanks me to clean my room. And you have 2 choices to fill in the blank. Tells or nags. And, of course, the correct answer in school is nags. My mom always nags me to clean my room. Not tells, not asks, not says pretty please, but nags. That is the only choice, the only correct answer. All right, so let's go on to the next exercise. A learning exercise and homework. We're going to write a letter to our parents about a problem. In other words, we're going to create a mock social issue, okay? And we're going to act as a group and try to manipulate our parents into solving that non-existent social problem. We want the parents to help solve the problem. We need parents to understand our problem, so we're going to use words that make them feel how important it is to help us. Wow. Do you see that? So we're going to make our parents, we're going to appeal from everything from, it's going to be an appeal to pity. It's going to be an appeal to their authority to do something. It's going to be so many different fallacies that can be put in there. So we're going to try to make our parents feel how important it is to help us. Not know, not learn, but feel. A purely emotional response is what they're teaching your children. Now, keep in mind that this is how your children are going to interact with you on a regular basis. They're going to try to manipulate your opinions, your orders, on a constant basis, because that's what they're being taught. That is how you deal with people. That's how you manipulate your parents. So here's the Hegelian dialect, and this is quite a frightening but brilliant way of teaching children how to be pure evil. Write on your paper, write these 3 words: anger, fear, and joy. Okay, then it says feelings often cause people to act. And here's the lesson plan. Okay, problem: the library needs more books. Anger: the mayor got a raise, but the kids do not have books. A totally sidestepped issue. It has nothing to do with anything. This is building a straw man argument, a fallacy again. Okay, under fear, so we have anger, the mayor got a raise, while the kids don't have books. Appeal to emotion. Fear: if students do not read well, they will fail. Okay, so now we bring that around and we say that's the mayor's fault because he got a raise. That is what we call a logical fallacy. It has nothing to do with the fact the kids don't have books. But if you tie it into that, maybe we can get our parents to react. Joy. Under the joy category, we have the solution. So we had problem. The library needs more books. We have anger and fear, which are the reactions. So you're causing the reactions, just like government does amongst the population. And then you have the solution, or joy. Joy says give a book and give a kid a chance. All right, so we've just discovered how to manipulate. We've just taught first graders how to completely manipulate their parents' emotions so that they might donate a book to the library. Okay? Ask me, that's brilliant, because that's what happens to us every day of our lives as we watch the media, as we watch political campaigns, as we listen to politicians speak to us and attorneys. That is what happens in court. This is fallacy, and this is absolutely against what the liberal arts education, the trivium and the quadrivium teach. This is literally creating monsters out of your children. So the teachers are then given a chart, basically, and they're supposed to chart the progress of your children. And what they're charting is a measurement of your child's attitude, his disbeliefs, his or her, and his dispositions. It's an observation tool to basically what it says, growth and change, to measure growth and change in students' attitudes and behavior. We'll be back right after these messages.
It is like a finger pointing away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory. Empty your mind, be formless, shapeless, like water, like water.
Again, today we are talking about the Common Core curriculum here on the Corporation Nation. Certainly are part of the Corporation Nation when we're talking about this, the corporate takeover, literally, of education. And please understand that the word education is actually capitalized here because it refers to the privatization and corporatization of education. We're not talking about the traditional education you're used to. We're talking about private education in public schools. We'll explain how that happens. So, basically, again, the Common Core literature, this one was called Voices, actually teaches the Hegelian dialectic, how to use problem, reaction, solution, how to influence your parents and other people in their emotions in order to make them have an illogical and unreasonable response to your request or some action that you're doing. How to create social change through nothing but an emotional response. That's what Common Core is teaching. And that is absolutely the complete opposite of what the Trivium actually teaches. And if you're growing up with this type of manipulative opinions and actions, then you're going to have a whole nation of children continuously harming each other by trying to use fallacy and fiction to try to gain and get ahead of each other. That's, if you look at all the reality shows and all of the things, that's basically the theme of every reality show out there, is how to harm someone else to get ahead, how to compete, Big Brother, Survivor. It's all about competition. It's never about necessarily helping people, unless you're helping those people in a social aspect. In other words, trying to create change or eliminate other contestants by joining together in a part-time, what do they call it on those shows? An alliance, basically. And of course, alliance is another word for a social club or a social change outfit. So, the teachers are then told to chart or measure the attitude, disbeliefs, and dispositions of the children. So they're actually monitoring how these lesson plans are manipulating the children into becoming good little Hegelian soldiers. Part of that is an observation tool for what they call growth and change in students' behaviors and attitudes. So you might have a perfectly innocent child coming into school, and by the time that child leaves, you've measured the change, the growth and the change of the behaviors and attitudes. You literally manipulated the child through these lesson plans to become something a child that you didn't raise, basically. And this is the danger of what's happening here. Now, how did this all happen? How did this type of a lesson plan get into schools in the first place? There's one more thing. There's one more little thing I want to read here. It's a question. It says in the lesson plan, it says, does the student use first-person plural voice, as in words like our and we, to advocate ways to solve the problem? In other words, have you taught the student to be part of a group instead of trying to act individually and have individual thought? Are they using I, or are they using we or our? Okay? This is like the Borg. The Borg on Star Trek. Probably not a lot of Star Trek fans, but the Borg were a transhumanist robot, a collective group of people who have been cybernetically changed and altered so that they're all part of a hive mind. And they actually cannot say the word I. It is not in their vocabulary because they collectively think as a group. They're very efficient in this way, efficient killers, efficient nation builders, efficient world destroyers. And guess what? That's exactly what they want children to grow up as, because they want to put them into the corporate world, and they want to put them in the military, where the generals actually say that nation building is a good thing. Okay, what does this teach? This teaches democracy. It doesn't teach republic. It doesn't teach freedom. It doesn't teach anything but democracy and majority rule. In other words, it teaches you how to be a good citizen, or a good slave, if you will. Remember, knowledge makes a man unfit to be a slave, so knowledge is the last thing they want to teach in school. It teaches communitarianism over the self, just like the United Nations with its Declaration of Human Rights, which will, or if it already hasn't, replace the Constitution of the United States, which very, very clearly states that the community always is more important than the individual, that your rights do not exist when it comes comparatively to the rest of the community. That means your land can be taken on behalf of the community just like it can now through eminent domain, but it's a lot easier, especially when you have this kind of mindset. It teaches individuals have no power, that you must socially connect and become part of the group, just like the Borg. It teaches how to be good little citizens. Now, how did this all start? What is this Common Core thing? Why do so many people not know about it? That's the other aspect. And to really understand that and really understand how this is happening and how basically all of the laws, especially the uniform laws and acts, have been passed in each state, where the same law is passed in all 50 states. This is the part today that I really want to focus on, because this is the most frightening aspect of this whole thing, because literally no one out there, in my opinion, really understands how government works nowadays. We're still stuck in the 1776 Constitution, what is good, what is bad, That is not how government works. Government has been usurped. And when you hear the concept or the statement that government or legislature just rubber stamps the bills that come to them, this is true. The reason that they do that is much more important than the fact that they do that. The reason that they do that is because long ago, actually in the late 1800s, early 1900s, government figured out that, well, gee, on the surface, we have all these laws and regulations that bind us from committing the organized crime that we'd like to commit. And that's what government is. It is organized crime. So how are we going to get out of these chains that bind us so that we can actually create things like Common Core without actually having it appear that the federal government passes and forces it on the states and the counties and the cities? How are we going to do that? How are we going to manipulate the public purview, use its tacit consent to implement all of these things? Well, the answer came about through the implementation of what's known as private associations. Non-governmental. Keep that in mind. All of these associations, including the Bar Association, these are all non-governmental private associations. An example of a private association that's non-governmental is the NFL. Okay, the NBA. Why are these non-profit agencies, you ask, like I do? Because they are bringing in billions and billions and manipulating games and altering the profiting off the betting structure, changing the point spread to benefit the betting, the sports books. Why is this a non-profit entity? Well, because it's a representative of the players. It's a professional organization. Well, guess what? That's also what the National Governors Association is. That's also what the National Mayors Association of Mayors. That's what Government Financial Officers Association is. That's what the Sheriff's Association is. National Association of Police Chiefs. It goes down the list. Sewer and Water Association. All of these different aspects of government have their own and created their own private, non-governmental associations. Okay, we talked about the Bar Association. Okay, actually it's an association we call the Federal Reserve Board is also a private association. The Post Office, the board, is a private association. All of these are private associations, okay? They're still government regulated. They still must follow a certain batch of laws, but for the most part, it's just a way to commit conspiracy with immunity. Well, why do I say that? Well, the National Governors Association was created by none other than governors. And what happens? Well, the 50 governors, they get together in Washington, D.C. So they fly, and you pay for the bill, they fly to Washington, D.C., and they all meet in a nice little building that's set up for all these non-governmental private associations. And they conspire to create things like Common Core. And we'll get into that more as we come back.
And the men who hold high places must be the ones who start to mold a new reality closer to the heart. Closer to the heart.
Closer to the heart, and indeed, we're in the corporation nation, and we're talking about Common Core today. I'm your host, Clint Richardson. Join me tomorrow, by the way, for the infamous Walter Burien of CAFR1.com. We'll be talking about the Comprehensive Annual Financial Reporting System and Structure. One of the most important topics out there, I'll tell you. I've spent years studying that subject. And also on Thursday, we have back with us every week, Freeman Bert from Colorado, talking about more law, natural law, and how to avoid, well, avoid's not the right word because that's actually a punishable word. So we don't avoid, we simply say no to the court. We don't appear. We don't even make a special appearance if we don't have to. We write them a letter and say, screw you. So, all right, let's get back to Common Core here. Now, there's a building in Washington, D.C. that houses many, many of these non-governmental private organizations. And the reason that they do this in Washington, D.C., in other words, why they conspire, they step outside of their states and they enter into an area that is no longer within the 50 states. They go outside into a foreign corporation and they have immunity. And they are in the District of Columbia in a building called the State Services Organization. Now, you can go to the State Services Organization website, which is sso.org, and you can see a list of all the tenants there. And you'll be surprised to know that your state also is basically, well, it's a private association almost, and it actually has an office in this building. A lot of the states do. States really aren't what we think, but we'll save that conversation for another day. But look at the tenant list, and you'll see all of these non-governmental private associations. So the 50 governors, they gather there, or their representatives, their helpers, their minions, their seanines. They gather there, and they create legislation and what's called model legislation and standards. When you hear the word model, you're talking about an Agenda 21 type of tool that is used. So, what happens when all these 50 governors get together? Well, they create things like Common Core standards. Wait a minute. What do you mean they create Common Core? Well, yeah, that's right. Common Core was created by the 50 governors in their non-governmental private association called the National Governors Association. They met in Washington, D.C. many times and created Common Core standards. On the Common Core website, it says 45 states, the District of Columbia, 4 territories, and the Department of Defense, Education Activity have adopted the Common Core standards. Well, yes, folks, that's right. Your military is being trained under the Common Core. Not just your military, but your FBI, your CIA. Okay? Guess who's writing the lesson plans? Or some of the lesson plans for your military? I guarantee it's not an Arab group. Well, who do you think it is? Could it be the ADL? The Anti-Defamation League, talking about the Arab Spring and terrorism, explaining anti-Semitism and the Holocaust history to the soldiers, demonizing the Arabs. Yes, that is who is doing the lesson plans under Common Core curriculum standards to your military. Okay, this is not just children. Okay, this is throughout the vocational system, college, high school, grammar, everything. But most importantly, it's your military, and we'll get into that a little later, too. All right, so what happens? The national governors, they get together, as well as all of these other politicians. Their mayors, your sheriffs, they're all guilty of this. They're all guilty, literally, of conspiracy. You just have to prove that in court. So they go and they gather in the State Services Organization building. From the Common Core website, here's what it says. It says copyright. This website and all content on this website, including in particular the Common Core state standards, are the property of NGA, or National Governors Association Center, and CCSSO, which is, Common Core State Standards Office, I believe. It's another private association. And NGA Center retain all right, title, and interest in and to the same. All right, so they created it, and they copyrighted it, and they claim total ownership of Common Core standards. A public license for use of Common Core state standards, use of the Common Core state standards is permitted by the National Governors Association Center, pursuant to and subject to the terms of a public license, which is available on this website. Okay? So when your state, your city, your county, your school district attaches to the Common Core standards, it must do so only with permission and license from a non-governmental private association called the National Governors Association, which is a collection of governors, active, voted-in, elected governors, acting outside of their states in a private conspiratorial organization. This, my friends, is how your government really works. So what do they do once they've created? Because, it's one thing to have created the Common Core standards. It's another to actually implement them in the 50 states. Now, obviously, the federal government doesn't want to be seen as a tyrant as much as possible, even though it is under the Lieber Code, especially. But so what it does is allows this type of conspiratorial action by each state. And what happens then is what's called uniformity of law, or uniform acts, uniform laws, uniform standards, uniform best practices. These are all touchy-feely Sustainable Development Agenda 21 words. Just so you understand that I'm not just pulling your leg here, let's read from the National Governors Association website, which is not the Common Core website. This is the actual website for National Governors Association. It says the NGA is an American 501c3 tax-exempt nonprofit organization, best known for involvement with developing the Common Core education initiatives. Its mission statement, the National Governors Association, or NGA, is a bipartisan organization of the nation's governors, promoting visionary state leadership, sharing in best practices, and speaking with a collective voice on national policy. Okay, while we're all out here in no man's land, in the illusionary world of politics, thinking that we've hired or elected a Republican or a Democrat or a Libertarian or a Green or this or that, in reality, all of these people from all of these states are actually meeting in their respective private associations in a non-partisan or bipartisan. In other words, they're working together. They have no party affiliation when they meet in Washington, D.C. to conspire together to create things like Common Core and then get them implemented. So they leave their Democrat or their Republican illusion and facade. They meet in Washington, D.C. under bipartisan and what they refer to here as a collective voice on national policy, and they conspire to do just that. Then, once this is all done, Well, what do? They scurry like little cockroaches back to their states, their prospective 50 states. And what do? They lobby themselves to pass their own created legislation, which in this case is Common Core standards. Do you understand how that works? Do you understand that this is your real government? This is how all or 90% of your government operates? Man, we've got some waking up to do, folks. We'll be back after these words.
With financial uncertainty circling the globe due to job losses, decline in the housing market, a climate of...
Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes. Men who despise you, enslave you, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are men. Choose the power to make this life a wonderful adventure. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world to do away with greed. A world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Do not despair. The hate of men will pass and dictators die. And the power they took from the people will return to the people. Let us all unite.
All right, folks, we are back. Again, you're in the Corporation Nation. I am Clint Richardson. I don't want to get off thread here, so I'd like to let the National Governors Association tell you what it is in its own words, its own arrogant admission, because it's not afraid of you, because it knows you don't know that this is happening. I'm hoping to change that, of course, but it knows. These organizations, these politicians, the reason they're so smug and arrogant is because they know that you have no idea how your government is actually run. You have no idea that all of this legislation is being created in private non-governmental associations and then rubber stamped. Again, because they now go back to their prospective states after conspiring together in Washington, D.C. under the auspices of a nonprofit organization. And they lobby their own legislature. They lobby themselves. If you can imagine that is the case, imagine someone lobbying themselves. Hey, hi, Clint, I'm the governor. I just wanted to let you know that we, governors, all wrote this legislation and wanted to know if you'd, promote it in your state. And then I would, again, say to myself, well, sure, I'm the governor of the state. I have a lot of power here, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lobby for what you created in your private association. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. And make no mistake, these are lobbying organizations that are lobbying their own product to themselves. I can't get that out enough. So let's read from the National Governors Association here. Again, how your government really works. Who we are, quote, founded in 1908. This is how long this has been going on. Founded in 1908. The National Governors Association, or NGA, is the collective voice of the nation's governors and one of Washington, D.C.'s most respected public policy organizations. Its members are the governors of the 55 states. You heard that right, folks. Its members are the governors of the 55 states, territories, and commonwealths. Okay? Let's go back a minute. The collective voice of the nation's governors. Now, if you're in Texas, and I know some of you are, or let's say you're in New York, or let's say you're in California. Now, did you move to Texas because you wanted your governor to act collectively with the governors of Texas and New York? Likewise, did you go to New York because you wished that your governor of New York would act collectively with Texas and California? How about you in Kansas? Huh? Did you know that you don't really have a sovereign country or state? That you have a governor that acts collectively, you have mayors that act collectively? Did you know that? Because it doesn't matter what state you live in anymore. You are a nation, no longer of states. So, it's members of the governors of the 55 states. I just love that that's on their own website. NGA provides governors and their senior staff members with services that range from representing states on Capitol Hill and before the administration on key federal issues to developing and implementing innovative solutions to public policy challenges through the NGA Center for Best Practices. Okay, best practices. Anytime you hear that, that is a United Nations function. That is Agenda 21. Any kind of best practices coming from an international sector. NGA also provides management and technical assistance to both new and incumbent governors. In other words, a little Common Core education to make sure the governors are understand what they're getting into, and that they have to be part of the mafia. Well, that's an insult to the mafia, the organized crime that is government. How about that? What we do, quote, through NGA, governors identify priority issues and deal collectively with matters of public policy and governance at the state and national levels. Did you hear that? Okay, governance is something that collective shareholders do in corporations. Okay, these guys might as well. They're like the board of directors of the nation. Okay, besides Congress, they're literally. Well, let's say they're the franchise owners of McDonald's, and they all get together and they pretend to be individual, even though they're acting collectively, as they say on their own website. Okay, governance, not government, but governance at state and national levels. Quote, the National Governors Association Center for Best Practices, again, an international concept, develops, or NGA Center develops, innovative solution to today's most pressing public policy challenges, and is the only research and development firm that directly serves the nation's governors. Okay, when they say public policy challenges, what that really means is that there's a bunch of laws that prevent them from doing what they're doing, which is why they travel outside of their states into a neutral, it's a sanctuary. It's a place that allows them to conspire and not have it be against the law. That's basically what they're talking about. They're avoiding their own laws in order to collectively work together to break those laws, and then going back to their states and pretending to be Democrats and Republicans and good little governors. It's just not the case, folks. All right, so there's a little more here. It says the Council of Chief State School Officers, this is also very important, part of the NGA, is a nonpartisan, nationwide, nonprofit organization. There's that word again, nonpartisan, meaning forget your political parties. They don't exist. There is no left and right. It's all crap. Nationwide nonprofit organization of public officials who head departments of elementary and secondary education in the states. The District of Columbia, the Department of Defense, Education Activity, and 5 U.S. extra state jurisdictions. The Council of Chief State School Officers provides leadership, advocacy, in other words, lobbying, and technical assistance to major educational issues. The council seeks member consensus. What is that? That is the Delphi technique, another international Agenda 21 thing, on major educational issues, and expresses their views to civic and professional organizations, federal agencies, Congress, and the public. Again, a non-profit, non-partisan, non-governmental organization influencing, who just happen to also be the heads of departments of elementary and secondary education and the Department of Defense. These guys are getting together again and conspiring to pass Common Core standards, to bring in the United Nations to a city, county, state near you, district. Okay, one last thing here. I just love this because it's like catching a villain monologuing. It's like it's the arrogance of what they're saying here. It just floors me, and I hope it floors you. I hope that you'll pull your children out of this voluntary system we're talking about. The work of the Military Child Education Coalition, MCEC, is focused on ensuring quality educational opportunities for all military children affected by mobility, family separation, and transition. Another 501c3 nonprofit worldwide organization, the Military Child Education Coalition performs research, develops resources, conducts professional institutes and conferences, and develops and publishes resources for all constituencies. Well, we'll be back here. Unbelievable.
Neighbor, welcome again to this neighborhood. I'd like to show you something. You know what this is? Maybe if I press this button. There are so many things to learn about in this world, and so many people who can help us learn, and so many people who can help us learn. Did you ever grow anything in the garden of your mind? In the garden of your mind? You can grow ideas in the garden of your mind.
Let me tell you. Again, our governors create this. They go back to their states. They lobby themselves, and legislature, pretending to be Democrats and Republicans, suddenly find a bipartisan bone in their body, and miraculous things start to happen, and legislation is passed that was created by themselves in private non-governmental associations. That's basically how your government works on all levels. Unfortunately, that's the reality. You can choose to turn away from that reality, or you can start facing it and doing something about it. So, what in the heck is going on here? Let me read you some things from the military's website. This is army.mil website. It says that more schools in the Army Training System, or TASS, are teaching, or soon will be teaching, the standalone Common Core for basic and advanced NCO courses. That includes the Army's Basic Non-Commissioned Officers course and the Army's Advanced Non-Commissioned Officer course. It says the Army school system is one system, one standard. So every soldier taking the standalone Common Core will receive identical training no matter which school he or she attends. This is how they want all school and all children to learn as well. Sergeant Major Steve Murrill, Chief of the NCO branch of the Army's Training and Doctrine Command, or TRADOC. You hear that? The Army has a Training and Doctrine Command. It says training is conducted as distance learning, broadcast through video teletraining. Again, Common Core is very keen on computerizing and transhumanizing your children. I want you to be very clear on this point. A lot of soldiers have complained that they don't get any hands-on training because of this type of indoctrination training through computers and video long-distance learning. By the way, distance learning is not just a term, it's a product offered as so many other products are offered. Some of the products from the Core Corporation include, there's words like intervention is a product, that's a service. There's IT staffing and data collection, which has to do with all of that monitoring behavior and everything. You have all of these teacher staffing is probably the most important part because you're actually teaching the teachers instead of teaching the children. And as long as the teachers want a paycheck, they'll basically teach the kids anything you want them to. Basically, that's how government operates. It withholds benefits if you don't. or fires you or just doesn't hire you at all, because now a private corporation in India named Core Education and Technology Services, with its subsidiary in America, Core ECS, Education Consulting Services, is now one of the major players in the education, again, capital E, for-profit privatization movement of education. That corporation in India is doing teacher staffing for many, many states. I believe it's in the 40-something different states. It's controlling the IT and the data collection. A foreign corporation, folks. This is what Common Core standards and all of the accompanying legislation allows. It allows for the privatization of education. This is why Microsoft, Dell Computers, Core out of India. This is why all of these companies, Texas Instruments is another one, Scholastic. This is why all these companies are so interested in this, because it allows them to enter into what's called a public-private partnership, a long-term lease agreement to provide students with their services or products. Well, of course, what's happening through Common Core and its initiatives and all these standards and best practices that are coming along is that the school districts are then forced through legislation to, of course, not let any child be left behind, which really stands for the code of never let a child get ahead. And what it does is it allows for companies like Microsoft and Dell and Intel and all that goes with the computers to be required. In other words, school districts will be required to fund Dell computers for all of their children. iPads, whatever else Microsoft has, Apple, Microsoft, Dell computers. You see, this is how privatization works. And, of course, privatization happened in this country with the advent of Executive Order 12803, which was George Bush Sr. in the early 90s. And you can read that, or you can go to my article on my blog, which is United States and its Military Now Rotten to the Core. That's the name of my latest article. It's a very hefty research project, of which I'm reading to you right now. So back to the military. So we have the Army Training and Doctrine Command. We have the non-commissioned officers and the advanced non-commissioned officers. We have all of the training for basically all of the military happening under Common Core standards. Now, why is this important? They have things called primary leadership development course, which is very similar to teaching teachers how to handle students. It's teaching generals and captains and sergeants how to handle their soldiers who come from a Common Core education, of course. Non-commissioned officer course, USA Sergeant's Major course. In order to become a Sergeant Major, you are required to go through Common Core. It is, in fact, listed as a prerequisite for promotion. Okay, so this is also another, similar tool. It is the mark of the beast. If you don't enter into Common Core, you cannot get a promotion. It's simple as that. If you don't go through Common Core, you can't. If you don't teach Common Core, you can't be a teacher. You see, it's very clever. Yes. Let's switch gears here and talk why. Let's discover why this is such an important thing that Common Core is in the military. Because again, as I mentioned earlier, the ADL, or Anti-Defamation League, is writing a lot of these lesson plans. One of the more familiar ones people might be familiar with is Unheard Voices, stories of lesbian, gay, and bi a transgender history. This is an education curriculum. This is from the ADL website, by the way. This is an education curriculum course to be taught to youngsters in grammar, middle, and high school, and labeled as lessons in civics, history, language arts, and life skills, working with others, and, of course, also listed as visual arts. Unheard Voices, the stories of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender history, straight from the ADL. Okay. Very interesting. Now, when we read a little bit about that learning tool, it says this. Correlations, quote, correlations of lessons to the Common Core state standards for English language arts and literacy in history, social studies, science, and technical subjects. Okay, so the ADL, as a private, non-governmental association, just like the National Governors Association, is writing the lessons through the public-private partnership model. Okay, privatization means that schools will be literally required, depending on the legislation of each state, to accept ADL lesson plans. This, I don't say this just because it's the ADL. If it was the KKK or the Boy Scouts or any other private association out there, it would be just as concerning. It's one-sided. It is not healthy, period. And we'll get more into this. I'm not going to take calls today, folks. I do apologize. I just want to get all this information out on shows. Back.
Hi, neighbor. Welcome again to this neighborhood. I'd like to show you something. You know what this is? Or maybe if I press this button. Imagine every person that you see is somewhat different from every other person in the world. Some can do some things, some can do others. Did you ever think of the many things you learned to do? Many things.
All right, folks.
Did you ever grow anything in the garden?
Welcome back to the Corporation Nation radio program. We are talking about Common Core. And you're about to find out why I say this is such a dangerous tool of, not for, but of, international Zionism, specifically the ADL. Let's read what the heck's going on here with the ADL. And this should be all that you need to know. This next fact that we're going to get to, this next lesson curriculum plan is all you should need to know. But we'll go through several. But the ADL's education website or resource website, basically, again, the arrogance of it, it says, it gives the following statistics. It says over 19,000 educators teach about the Holocaust using Echoes and Reflections, which is a publication, a lesson plan from the ADL. I won't be biased, will it? Over 58 million adults and youth are impacted by the ADL in the United States. And it reaches 300 campuses in 44 U.S. states. Now, do you think the ADL could have done this without some central governing plan like Common Core and all of that accompanying legislation, best practices, and model legislation? Do you really think that ADL could have gotten its hands into here, into the education system and so many other things, of both children, adults, and military, CIA, and FBI? Do you really think that it could have done that without a little help? Without a little control, I should say. But here's what I really want to get across to you folks, because this is the worst possible scenario in my book, right here, right now. The ADL promotes something called anti-bias education. Now, what does that mean, anti-bias? Well, I mean, it sounds like it would be a good thing, but of course it's not, because it's coming from the ADL. It says using, here's a lesson plan here. It's actually something to teach teachers, I believe. It says using an anti-bias lens to examine early childhood children's books in your program. Okay, so this is open to all teachers and all education specialists, all of those people in those private associations. It says, quote, this is from the ADL website, unfortunately, the impressions imparted by some books are not always positive and free from, quote-unquote, bias. Learn what teachers can do to take advantage of their early windows of opportunity to prevent the development of prejudice. This webinar is 1.5 hours long. All right, so now what is it talking about here? Let's go a little further, because you probably don't understand yet what they're talking about. But this is the most egregious crime against not only humanity but history itself. Let's go on. Okay, again from the adl.org/education website. It says the need for an anti-bias curriculum, preparing students to live and work successfully in a pluralistic nation and a global community, requires opportunities for them to engage in curricular content that furthers the ideals of justice and equality upon which the nation was founded. Equality, of course, is not equity. Equality is a political status, and we'll probably get into that in a future show. Anti-bias curriculum provides an understanding of diverse perspectives, strengthens critical thinking skills, challenges the development of emerging biases, and builds skills and motivation to take action against prejudice. Additionally, creating an anti-bias learning environment fosters a positive and open mindset to engage in and learn from curricular content that promotes equality and diversity nationwide. Anti-bias study guides have been prepared for educators by the ADL to use as supplementary materials for students in grades 4 through 12. The guides are available in both intermediate and secondary level. The lessons assist students in exploring societal issues arising from bias, bigotry, and discrimination, building critical thinking skills, increasing understanding of diverse perspectives, and building leadership skills in promoting justice and equality in schools, communities, and society at large. That's the ADL's version of the word bias. That's how it tries to squeak by and not let you know that what it really is saying is that the ADL wishes to ban books. Do you hear me, folks? Anti-bias education or anti-bias learning materials actually means banning books, banning history books, banning all kinds of books. It is a symbolic burning of books, if you will. You understand? This is what happens when a completely biased private organization gets into power and educates your children. So, what's going on here? Let's read a little bit more. The ADL created what's called the World of Difference Institute to further promote and implement a non-biased education. And it describes it as this. The Anti-Defamation League's A World of Difference Institute is a market leader. Oh, market. Remember, education is a for-profit market now. In the development and delivery of anti-bias education and diversity training programs and resources. Comprised of 4 distinct departments, classroom, campus, community, and workplace, the Institute's customizable, interactive programs are used by schools, universities, corporations, law enforcement agencies, community organizations throughout the United States and abroad. Did you hear that, law enforcement agencies? Schools, universities, corporations, and community organizations. Okay, talk about a stranglehold. Ongoing evaluation efforts in collaboration with renowned universities, colleges, and foundations ensure and enhance the efficiency of the Institute's offering. Recognizing bias and the harm it inflicts on individuals and society, explore the value of diversity, improve intergroup relations, combat racism, and here you have it. Finally, they say the truth, anti-Semitism. This word that they admit is a trick. It's a trick. I remember the minister of Israel coming out and saying, oh, yeah, it's a trick. We use it all the time to basically use fallacy. We use a fallacy, an ad hominem, a straw man argument. We say, hey, you're anti-Semitic because you're questioning things. You're questioning how we treat our Palestinians over here in our state, illegitimate state. Okay, oh, you're anti-Semitic. What? And, of course, in Europe, where it's illegal to talk about the Holocaust in any negative sort of way or challenge its facts, they have made a law that says you can't. In fact, I tried to get a guest who said no, he couldn't come on because he's afraid he'll get arrested if he talks about the Holocaust. Isn't that interesting? That's how you know something is afoot. The Anti-Defamation League, another private non-governmental association founded in 1913 to stop, this is its mission statement, to stop the defamation of the Jewish people and to secure justice and fair treatment to all citizens alike. Of course, it always hides behind some other group of citizens. All people must be protected. Yeah. Now, I called this book burning. Why would I do that? Why would I say that the ADL is creating a book-burning opportunity here? Well, let's look at one of the lesson plans. Got to find it first, of course. This is the ADL's attempt to ban Shakespeare. Okay, Shakespeare. Shakespeare's anti-Semitic, all right? Let's see what it says. It says, the lesson plan that the ADL has provided for both schools, grammar schools, high schools, and, of course, your military soldiers, is Anti-Semitism and the Merchant of Venice, a discussion guide for educators. So, Shakespeare was anti-Semitic. This research tool is for teachers presenting The Merchant of Venice to their students. This guide is not intended as an exhaustive study of the play. Rather, it is a supplement intended to guide an exploration of the problematic issue of anti-Semitism as part of the broader discussion of the play. Folks, this is banning books. We'll be back.
The mission was successfully completed. Reality.
Did you see the frightened ones? Did you hear the falling bombs? Did you ever wonder why we had to run for shelter when the promise of a brave new world unfurled beneath the clear blue sky?
Look, Mummy, there's no place.
Chaos theory, hurricane control, advanced cloud sea, massive ionospheric heaters, storm-absorbing supergel, nanoscale weather machines.
All right, folks, welcome back.
Technologies exist in some form today.
The final segment here. I apologize I didn't take any calls today, but I just thought this was such an important topic, and I please invite you and beg you to go ahead and go to my blog, realityblogger.wordpress.com, and read the full version of this thing. It is very long and very in-depth. I'm just covering little pieces of it, and you can read the full lesson plan for the anti-Semitic Shakespeare, Merchant of Venice. But I wanted to get back because we read one of the lesson plans earlier in the show, in the beginning of the show, and I want to show you how this coincides with the lesson plan that the ADL is providing here. And it says the whole purpose of this lesson is about promoting censorship, while at the same time promoting freedom of speech. It's a I don't know, what do you call that? A double entendre. It's a fallacy. Okay, so it says, ask the students to define the word censorship. Lead a discussion on the history of free speech movement in the United States. Of course, it gives recommendations to research the ACLU and PEN, which is an association of writers. Then it says, lead a discussion with your children on whether students think that censorship is ever appropriate. Did you hear that? Let your kids, your grammar school kids, decide if censorship is ever appropriate. And hey, while you're at it, let's use what did we call those? We called those, in literature and writing, we called them emotional words. Remember those? Those are the fallacies that they wanted you to use words that will develop an emotional response. So with censorship, they're going to attach emotional words to it. Lead a discussion with your students on whether they think that censorship is ever appropriate. Have the students debate whether or not censorship of the Merchant of Venice is ever an appropriate response to concerns about the promotion of anti-Semitism or prejudice. Divide the class into two teams. Oh, of course you got to divide everybody into at least two teams, right, left, Democrat, or Republic, right? Into two teams and assign one to argue pro-censorship and the other to argue an anti-censorship perspective. This is how the ADL is infiltrating into the school system. And please, there's a lot of other corporations. Core of India is one of those that is doing the same thing. But most importantly, this is the bread and butter. This is how the ADL is literally altering the perspectives of both history and logic, reason, grammar, rhetoric. All of these things are being warped. It continues with the lesson plan, of course, with a brief history of anti-Semitism. It says, for centuries, Jews have been accused of treacherous acts, including the murder of Jesus, poisoning wells, the ritual murder of Christian children, the bubonic plague, and controlling the media and the banks. Oh, well, gee, imagine that. Trust me, I came from Hollywood. I was a professional sound designer there, and I can assure you that they certainly control the media and all of that. The continual demonizing and scapegoating of the Jew as other highlights highlights the need to analyze and discuss the depiction of Jews in literature. Without an examination of both historic and contemporary anti-Semitism, students may be left with stereotypical and negative conception of Jews and Judaism. Now, I want to point out the fact that the word Semite actually refers to black Africans and Arabs. Just got to point that out, because that's, of course, not going to be taught in school, because that would ruin the whole thing. Again, it's a trick, according to an Israeli minister. It's a trick. You can watch that video of her talking. It's a trick. We use it to use fallacy to attack the messenger ad hominem, so that his message is not heard. If you state that that person is racist, then nobody wants to listen to him, even though they're stating fact. Let me read from the Bible. Heck, why not? Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which they say are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. That's Revelation 3:9. Hear that, the synagogue of Satan, those who say they are Jews, but are not. Anti-Semitism, Semites are black Africans and Arabs. You're starting to get the picture of who this synagogue of Satan is and how they're taking over. Oh, there's more lesson plans, Holocaust education, resilience of anti-Semitism, where they deny the Bolshevik Revolution, the Russian Revolution, Theodore Herzl, the Dreyfus Affair, Zionism, and the First World Zionist Congress in 1897. Those things didn't really happen in the way, we think they happened. No, we didn't boycott Germany leading to World War II. No, international Zionism didn't do that. Folks, this is book burning, and I know that's a strange way of describing this, but if you understand what that means, that they're banning a book or attempting to justify the banning of books through what they call censorship and non-bias education. So what other books could they ban? How about the Bible? Oh, wait a minute, that was already banned a long time ago. But the Bible, it says that, it doesn't say specifically that the Jews killed Jesus, but interestingly, what it does say is that they used their political power, their the Sanhedrin, the political power to force the government of Rome, the occupying government, to do it for them. That's That's what they specialize in. See, they are specializing now with the Common Core curriculum in forcing you to teach your children through the education system the ideals of international Zionism. That is what's happening here, folks. And I don't know how to get this through to people out there, but this is, or should be, the final straw. This is not only the aspect of government, not